We're going to be making the 1998 Kane mask. He had a couple that year, but most of them looked very similar to each other. What you see me doing right now is I'm cutting out the shape of the template on a 12x12 piece of tolling leather. This is a pretty tedious part of the whole process. As you can see, I sped up the video just because it's not exactly the most exciting part of the whole mask making process, but you gotta get through it. So what I'm doing now, as you can see, there's some lines that are throughout this template. Those need to have cuts on them because after you're done doing this, you're gonna wet your mask and then you're gonna have to fold all of those lines, and it's gonna make the mask get that thick look to it. So here we are putting the mask in some lukewarm water. You're gonna let that sit for about 2 minutes. Just let that soak. And now, one of my least favorite parts, but it's gotta be done. You're gonna need a little tool to push down some of the creases so that when it's time to fold, they're gonna fold a lot easier than if you didn't use that. Don't ask me what that tool is. I could not tell you. I've had that thing for like 10 years. And I bought it on eBay, but I do not remember what that thing is called. But it's very valuable. So yeah, once again, you can see I sped up the video just because it is not exactly the most exciting part of the whole process. But once you get past all this, then it becomes fun. The eyes too, right there. Those definitely need pinched down as good as possible. Otherwise, you're going to be poking yourself in the eye. Almost done here. Alright, so once you get that done, I like to flip it over so that I can see what it's looking like from the other side. And from there, I like to pinch the ends a little bit more. Don't ask me why, it's just my way of doing it. But okay, so once you're done with that, now you can really start creating. So I like to start off with the nose first, just get a little bit of detail going on there, and it's a lot easier to see where you need to go once that nose is raised a little bit. So what I like to do when it comes to adding those frowns on the mask, I like to just put a couple little lines there just so I have something to reference to guide me to know where I'm gonna put those lines. You don't have to do that, it's just something that I've kind of made up along the way. But here, as you can see now, we're starting to put the forehead frowns in. Now this part's not too bad. The only part that's a little bit tough is when you get to the frown that's closest to the eyes, because the eyes need to have their own creases as well, and you don't want the forehead frowns to run into the eye creases. Just pinch it along. Now that second frown, that's the toughest part, because you're trying to pinch that second frown right in the middle of everything, but you're trying also not to undo what you've already done. it's starting to look a lot more like Kane's actual mask the more we go. And the longer you do this, the mask is actually getting drier. And while it's getting drier, it starts to become a little bit easier to mold it, because the details start staying a lot easier. So once you're done with that, you can either use a hair dryer and dry it real fast, or you can do like I did right here. I actually let it sit for a night. But yeah, here you can see half the mask is molded, ready to go for the next step. So here I am going to spray paint the whole mask red, and you'll see why I do that. Now you don't want to spray paint it too close, because you run the risk of getting too much paint and it starts to run. And that creates a whole mess of problems when that happens. There you go. Now, what you see here is I'm cutting out the mouth. Not the most exciting part, but obviously it's got to be done. Now, I don't really have a template for this. All I really do is measure the length of the mouth on the mask. Then you just gotta make a little square. Now, since this is so small, I'm just using my sink. Run it underneath for 30 seconds. Okay, it's time to spray paint that red now. Getting close to getting that mouth on the mask. Now, I always like to make my masks look a little bit dark, because Kane's masks, they usually warped pretty quickly, and they started to look really worn after a few weeks of wearing them. So that's usually how I like to have them. I don't like to make them look too new. And the first step I do to getting that mouth on there is I use some Loctite super glue. And as you can see, I've already stitched it on. The next step will be cutting out that mouth slit. I like to draw it on there first just so I know where I'm going and I'm not winging it. And there it is. Now we gotta really clean up some spots, because you can see from drilling the holes and whatnot, you can see some of the paint came loose. But this is the best part. Yeah, I like to use a permanent marker just to draw the shapes. Doesn't have to be perfect. If you're not straight on some spots, you can just fix it later with the paint. It's more just a frame of reference. Now this is the part you wait for. This is the fun part. Also, the paint that I use, I like to use a lot of matte color paints. I don't like when when people use that glossy stuff. His masks were hardly ever like that, if not ever. It looks cheap and plasticky, and I try to steer clear of glossy finishes. You'll see this paint dries really fast, and you'll see it is not glossy once it dries. And there it is. You can already see it drying now. Once you start getting those details in, this is the gratifying part. Seeing it all come together. Also, I don't use very expensive paint either. Like that black right there, that's probably cost me $1 right at Walmart. Works just fine. There's my dog. I believe she makes a couple appearances here. Yep, there she is. Almost done here. Yeah, this one turned out really nice. And there she is. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting an extra matte finish on there. What this does is it helps protect the paint a little bit, but it also really gives it that nice matte finish at the end. It's going to look really shiny here for a minute, but once it dries, it gives it a really nice matte finish. And it makes the two colors that I used, they match together a lot better than if I didn't do that. And there's the finished product. Solid Kane mask. So I'd like to thank you all for watching, and please subscribe. I plan on making some more videos like this. This is my first real video back after taking a little bit of time away. So feel free to comment, and thank you.